A couple goes camping in the woods to rekindle their romance, but are stalked by a mysterious lumberjack. Hello, my name is Brook and I did the visual effects for Lumberjack. Lumberjack was directed by Colin Stryker and was one of 3 shorts that he was making to prepare for a feature horror film called The Grove. And while I have done a lot of test work with him to prepare for The Grove, we haven't actually done any visual effects work on the film just yet. We're waiting for some reshoots to get done. But in the meantime, I thought I'd tell you guys about the short that we did together a couple years ago called Lumberjack. I showed it to my parents when it was done, and I've never seen my dad so terrified of anything. It was very satisfying. Let's get some of the basic stuff out of the way. There's a shot early on of the couple inside of their tent, but we see from the outside, Colin wanted the fire to look like it had just been put out very recently, so I added some smoldering smoke. We both played around with adding some embers to the campfire for one of the scenes. I think while Colin ended up going with more subtle asset, I played around with particular effects to see if I could get something that felt like the wind was carrying it a little bit more, but I think it just ended up being too much for him. Moving on. The titular lumberjack himself, Colin wanted him to have a very dead kind of look to his skin, and I gave him a very blue toned skin, moist kind of looking decayed skin. And we played around with his eyes a little bit, tried to make his eyes have a little gleam to them in the darkness just so you could see him a little bit better. Alright, so from here on out, we're going to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen Lumberjack, go check it out. There's a link for it in the description below. And then come right back here, because I'm going to tell you, this is where the fun begins. Okay, you guys back? Awesome. So the lumberjack cuts off people's heads. I told you, spoiler. So anyways, the guy gets first. We don't see it right away as his partner's kind of like looking at him, his hood's up, but we don't want to reveal yet that he doesn't have a head anymore. So for one shot, the actor wearing a fully black mask to hide his face during the shoot, you could kind of see the outline of it and you could see that he was still breathing. There was a lens flare, there's a shaky camera, there was a complicated background, there was smoke in the background, so it's kind of hard to erase things, so I found it was easier to add to it. So instead of trying to erase the original face, I just increased the size of the hood, and then I added smoke around it to simulate the campfire smoke to better mask his breath coming up. And then I did have to re-noise the hoodie because it was already very grainy. When I increase the size, then you have to make the grain size smaller so that it doesn't stand out as being a thing that's been blown up. It's one of those things that maybe you'll notice it now, but you probably didn't think about it while you're watching it.
You might not have even noticed, but your brain did.
There were 2 shots I had to work on where you see that he has no head inside of the hoodie, and they did it 2 different ways. One shot was of the actor wearing a fully black mask. For this shot, they were more concerned about getting the lumberjack behind him, but I thought it would look really cool to see the blood and the missing everything, so I mocked it up, and I think it's actually my favorite shot that I did as far as how it looks, but the problem was the director never intended that to be the reveal that he had no head, so he still cropped it. And then of course the lumberjack in the back is blue. I used the body of his hoodie as a base for the damage on the inside. It moves with it perfectly. But now the actual reveal. They filmed this without the actor. They actually had a bloody stump. For my other shot, I think I took like a picture of a steak and made it look like a bloody stump. But for this one, they had an actual bloody stump in there, and they had like a wire up inside the hood to prop it up. So what I had to do was add blood and whatnot to the back of the hood because it was an oversight. They didn't think to add blood on the inside of the hood when they were making it all bloody. So that was a good blend of practical and digital, and I didn't have to mess with the stump at all. This was shot outside of Portland. There's got to be a Stump Town joke in there somewhere. And then the big money shot at the end. This was an interesting one. Both the actors wore black masks. I had to remove their heads, add stake stumps to their shoulders, add some additional blood, and then I had to create the background behind them, and then I had to match the lighting, which was tricky because it was a campfire, so the lighting's constantly changing. But what I realized was that your eye's not going to notice so much if every single frame is exactly the right lighting, so long as it's flickering at the same speed as the rest of the picture. So I just had to find the right flicker speed and amount. I think it looks great. No one's ever been critical of the stumps. I gotta make a stump counter for this video. How many times have I said stumps? Stump, bloody stump, the stump. And there's gotta be a stump. Stumps, the stumps, stumps. What I'm most glad that I got to do was incorporate the fly. There is a final shot of the lumberjack at the very end. The director said he wanted to have some flies buzzing around him, make him look even more dead, right? I initially made like a swarm of flies, and I thought it looked really cool. But Colin was like, that's way too many flies, way too many flies. So I brought it down to just 1 or 2, and then we have a shot where the fly lands on the blade. I think that it came out great. I used a template tool by Creation Effects for creating swarms. They're scripted templates, but they can be applied and customized in so many different ways that it feels like a plugin, even though it's technically just a template. And I've used swarms again for a short film called The New Gardener. Just something like adding bees to a garden or adding flies over a corpse adds so much visual value to your film. But yeah, working with Colin was really cool. You should check out his stuff, Dark Rose Pictures. He's trying to build a fan base right now, and his movie, The Grove, looks really great. I got to see like 40 minutes of footage cut together, and I've played around with a little bit of VFX. Hopefully I'll be doing the actual VFX for it in the next few months. When I first met Colin, we were doing some tests where he was kind of like, give me an idea of what you would do to simulate hallucinating in a forest. And he sent me a bunch of pictures of the woods that he took out around Mount Hood in Oregon. And I just played around with it and came up with a whole bunch of different effects. Now, none of these effects are final. None of these are representative of what we're going to do with his movie, The Grove, but they're just fun, and I thought it would be cool to share them. And so that's what I'm doing. You're probably still listening to me talk while these are on your screen. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop talking. There it is. All right, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, I have other breakdowns like this. It's called Behind the VFX, and it's a whole series here on my YouTube channel. And go check out Lumberjack and follow Dark Rose Pictures and Colin Stryker so you can keep up to date on everything going on with The Grove.